It's Ocean Drive in Coney Island.
Ocean Drive is the only luxury rentals in New York with a spectacular ocean view. You wake up in the morning and breathe that ocean air. I'll certify that you're going to live 10 years longer. When I became successful, I wanted to live on the ocean. If you have worked hard, you deserve an apartment on Ocean Drive too. Go to oceandrivenyc.com and reward yourself.
If you're a policeman, fireman, doctor, nurse, or teacher, you qualify for a limited time offer at oceandrivenyc.com. Terms and conditions apply.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I don't know what's happening for the former First Lady. Is this a funeral or a departure ceremony? I've heard the phrase departure ceremony, which I think is different from a funeral. What the hell is it? It's all the big networks right now. It's all about Rosalind Carter, dead at the age of 96 or so. All right, let's have a moment of silence. All right. So what else is going on? No, I mean, I'm sorry. She's 96, great long life. She got to live in the White House, married to Jimmy. It's not her fault that he was a terrible president, totally failed in every way. What do you say? I just want to know what the hell a departure ceremony is. It's pretty wild, every now and then you got these Republican pundits and historians coming on. You know what they've done? They've rehabilitated Jimmy Carter because he's not Trump and he hates Trump. Yeah, Jimmy Carter became a Trump hater, and that's the quickest way to rehabilitation, and often for, money and fame, a measure of it at least. Just ask Dick Cheney. And Dick Cheney, that name was mud after the Iraq War. Just 3 years ago, they made a movie about how corrupt and vile the Cheney family was. It's called Vice, actually. Vice, for vice get it? Vice president, vices, greed. It was all about that stuff. Christian Bale played Vice President Cheney and played him like a villain. Liz Cheney came out so hard against Trump and the phony impeachment committee and the January 6th stuff that she is now celebrated by the swamp, celebrated by the left even. They love her. And how she used Trump, just like George W. Bush. His name should be mud, quite frankly, after the Iraq War debacle. Oops, no weapons of mass destruction. How in the hell did that guy get reelected? Well, he fooled a lot of us, and he was sophisticated in a way. He used patriotism as a weapon, You can't abandon the troops, that kind of thing, right? We'll never abandon the troops. That has nothing to do with you. Okay, W. And what did W do? How did he get over that stuff? Why is W, when he sits on the Today Show, where his daughter works, by the way, hey, how's that for nepotism? Right? Isn't that a little bit over the top? Right? It is. George W. Bush's daughter, Jenna, works at the Today Show. And I know what you're thinking. What about you, Greg? Your dad is an important person. Yeah, well, my first job wasn't the Today Show. My first job wasn't WABC. My first job wasn't Fox News, where I worked for 9 years. I started the old-fashioned. Well, first I had to go into the Marine Corps, all right? No picnic. And then what did I do? I applied to TV stations all across the country. First, I interned at a little tiny station in Yuma, Arizona, hung around the TV station for a while, realized real quick I wanted to be a reporter. I did not want to be an intern. I just didn't know what to do with myself. Interns are a pain in the neck. You can't really trust them with anything. You can't give them any real responsibility, but you're supposed to give them something to do. And it's just a very awkward arrangement in my book. And after what Bill Clinton did, well, and internships too often, who gets the internships? The sons and daughters of the connected, the rich and the powerful. Now, there are some great interns out there, but my advice to any kid, any high schooler or any college kid, get a job. Get a regular job in the summer, right? I had a bunch of jobs. I delivered newspapers. I sharpened skis at the ski shop, sharpened and waxed skis. I was a janitor. I swept the floors. I worked in a bank. And what did I do at that bank? I swept the floors. One day I was promoted. You know what I did? I shredded old mortgages that were all paid off. What do you do with them? You got to shred them. You got to destroy them. All day long, I was shredding mortgages. All those jobs, you think I would have been better at saving money. I just ate the money. I got spending money. So where was I going with that? The interns and, back to me. I got a job. I sent resumes all over the country. And finally, after months of trying, News Channel 34, WIVT in Binghamton, New York, called me back. And I went up there, had an interview, had another interview, and I got hired as the morning newsman. And it was a great experience. I was the morning anchor right out of the bat. How about that? Is that the nepotism? No. My co-anchor was a college sophomore. Okay. It was not a big TV station. There's Jenna Bush starting right out of the gate on the Today Show. Anyway, I don't like that. I don't think that's good for Jenna. I don't think it's good for the viewers. All she knows how to do right now is agree with everything that Hoda says and pretend that she's not a conservative, pretend that she didn't grow up where a pro-life agenda was kind of the official agenda, right? And no, she's pro everything that's not conservative, pro this, pro that. And somehow she's the new Oprah when it comes to books. Yeah, you get to go on the Today Show. That's how you sell books. Everything else is too small to move a book. So she is now the big person who, like Oprah used to do. I didn't get on the Today Show to talk about my book. Then again, I was deeply critical of George W. Bush, the Iraq War, and a lot of other crazy woke things that are happening in America right now, including the mainstream media. So I wasn't expecting an invitation, but anyway, they used to like diversity of thought. Now, no. There's one way to look at things. So George W. Bush trashed MAGA. Remember that? He trashed MAGA. And that's how he got rehabilitated. That's why he's welcomed. Hey, the big news this morning, let's see here. Charles Koch, rich guy from Oklahoma, is endorsing Nikki Haley and using all of the money he can muster, which is a lot. Guy is a multi-billionaire. I guess he's even richer after his brother David died. It used to be the Koch brothers. Now it's just the Koch, Charles Koch. And he's got this massive political action committee. And wait a second, what's this? What's he doing on TV? What's this? Did you know that New York has a sheriff? Cannabis board settles lawsuit paving the way for legal dispensaries to open. What is it? Cannabis board settles lawsuit paving the way for legal dispensaries to open. I just had a flashback to when de Blasio and Bratton were holding up that big bag of weed. You know, before we went insane, before we totally lost our minds as a country, it used to be that the police would hold up drugs. Like, this is how much we seized. Look at all these drugs and weapons that we seized. They were illegal, but now they're in police custody, so they're off the streets. It was the opposite message with Bratton, the media hog, and de Blasio, the stoner. This is how much weed you can carry around legally in New York. Legally. A big, like, perfect for a drug dealer. Perfect. I mean, just. All right, so the sheriff is somehow involved in the legalization of weed. More on that later. The other thing. Oh, yeah, the Koch brothers, Nikki Haley. And what does that mean? Well, the Koch brothers are really bad at picking winners. Okay, the Koch brothers did everything they could to stop Donald Trump in 2016, and they failed. And they did everything they could to stop Trump in 2020. Oh, they were successful. Well, that's if you believe the results. If you think that election was totally on the up and up, it wasn't totally on the up and up. There's no evidence of widespread fraud. It doesn't take widespread fraud. It doesn't take widespread fraud. What's the other thing? Oh, who watched the parade? Who watched the Thanksgiving Day parade? Excuse me. Yikes. Hold on. There. That's better. 38 million people watched the parade. That number can't be right. 38 million people in America haven't done anything together, but they watched the parade. Huge number watched the Thanksgiving Day parade, hosted by Fake News NBC. Savannah was there. Hoda was there. And one of my favorites, Al Roker, was there. I like Al. He's apolitical. He's funny. And he has kind of lost his mind when it comes to the clothes. Have you noticed that? I saw him today. He was wearing a 3-piece suit and a pocket watch with a little chain. He looked like a railroad conductor from 1890. It was crazy. Too much. Too many accessories. It's like Coco Chanel once said. When it comes to accessories, take the last one off. Too much. So the other day, and but I do like Al. I've seen him a couple of times. Funny, real, great interviewer, and he's a very good broadcaster. The clothes, too much. I thought he would lose his mojo when he lost all that weight. That didn't happen. But he was wearing a maroon velvet suit. That's what it looked like to me, maroon velvet. And one of his big things is interviewing the president during a parade. He did it during the inaugural. He kind of made it famous. He did it in a really clever, interesting way. And so he did it with Joe Biden over the weekend and on Thanksgiving Day. And I noticed Joe was just on the phone along with Jill and saying the normal Joe Biden stuff, meaningless. And the thing that struck me, though, right behind him, so they got a picture of Joe Biden, and they got Al with his microphone, and in the middle, there's a little space. And you know what's behind him? A church. And you know what's right there in the middle of the church? A great big giant LGBT queer flag, a gay pride flag, right there in front of the church. And I've been looking it up. I've been poking around. 38 million people watching. Nobody noticed. Or if they noticed, they didn't care. That's the new normal, right? Of course, LGBTQ. LGBT queer, as I like to say. That's going to become our national flag pretty soon. Because, the stars and stripes and the red represents blood, apparently, and, it's all colonial, it's all slavery driven and all that stuff, right? The flag is racist. You know that. So we have to get a flag that's more inclusive and is probably going to wind up being the LGBT queer flag. I don't like the LGBT queer flag. I used to not have a problem with it. Now I have a big problem with it because it's been jammed down our faces like propaganda. It's too much. And now you're obviously trying to get at our children and orient them in a certain way. And that's a threat. That's a threat to families. But to see a church, a Christian church, give in and put that garbage on the front door. I mean, it's garbage now. There was one point, hey, what does it matter to me? What does it matter to me? Right? It doesn't really matter to me. But I don't know. I used to like back in the day Girls Gone Wild. Ever see the Girls Gone Wild videos? They used to advertise on TV. They get those college girls to do all kinds of crazy things. Why don't we put the Girls Gone Wild? I like that. Why don't we put that up there? Hey, I used to like to gamble. Lots of Americans like to gamble. They go to, what do they call it? Sin City, Las Vegas, Sin City. Hey, we really got a great culture going. We got a city built around sin. A distance between you and God. Is that good? No, that's a culture in decline. That is a culture rapidly in decline. In collapse. Anyway, I don't think that's a good message. And I'm surprised, but it's been so normalized, and we've been so desensitized. They've been very clever about how they did it, though. Very clever and sneaky. You know how they did it, right? They did it through some of the most affable and fun people around. People like Al Roker, unwitting. He's unwitting in all of this. Al Roker and much more than that. They are evil. They are evil, and nothing against my LGBTQ friends, although I don't like to call them LGBTQ friends, because there's so much more to a person than what's going on down there. Don't you think? Obviously, but I'll tell you who the co-conspirators are in this thing when I come back.
For the ones who know safety isn't a catchphrase, it's a culture, and the ones who help make sure everyone makes it home safe. For the safety-minded who watch everyone's backs, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as safety assessments and training to keep your facilities safe and your people safer. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hey, Pablo Guzman died. Pablo Guzman. Remember him, the reporter? He was all over the place. Channel 2 was his most recent assignment. He was at Channel 5. He was all over the place. He was in local radio for a time. Pablo Guzman, he was with the Young Lords, a Puerto Rican activist group, right? I first became acquainted with Pablo in the mid-1980s. He was one of the guys who showed up at the 106th precinct to interview my father, the stun gun scandal. I'll have more to say about Pablo. Great guy, dead at the age of 73. He had some really interesting reporting post 9/11 about the celebrations that were going down in Jersey City. More about Pablo in a little bit. And actually, I'm reminded that, Rochelle Boone of New York One died of pancreatic cancer. She was in her late 40s, I believe, with a child. Catherine Craig died a couple of years ago, local reporter, Channel 4. Died. I'm not sure what the causes were, but late 40s, children, working the early morning shift at a local news station, just like Rochelle. Lisa Calagrassi, Channel 7, late 40s, children, died. These are all local reporters. And forgive me, the Channel 2 weather person who recently dies. Let's see here. Channel 2, Elise Finch. She was 51, or late 40s, early 50s. That's four in a very short period of time, like 2.5 years. You know what that means? That means that working morning news in New York local television is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world, actually. If you look at the number of people who actually do that job, these 4 fatalities, the death rate among morning news people, this is like more dangerous than being a war correspondent in Gaza right now. It's insane. It's insane. And I'm the only one who connected the dots on this one. I've been jumping up and down about this for a couple of years. I guess I haven't been jumping high enough or loud enough, but something has to be done. And these women, especially women, they pay a bigger price than men. They don't have to be on TV. They could find another job. Well, actually, they can't. This is what they do. And the older you get, the more expendable you get. It's interesting. Catherine Craig, great reporter. The older she got, the better she got. With experience comes, you improve. Well, generally, you get a little bit more money, and then you get too expensive, and then they want to get rid of you, and then they say, well, take it or leave it. We'll get somebody cheaper. So are you sure you can't come in at 1:30 tomorrow morning? And they just keep going and going and going. All these women, I believe, had children. And, I see it with my wife. My goodness gracious. She doesn't work the graveyard shift, but she's got enough on her plate with the 2 kids, and she does a hell of a lot more of it than I do. I think that it's almost a death sentence working that morning show and having all these other responsibilities, especially if you're a reporter. Now, Rosanna Scotto, my bestie, she's an anchor, and she was a great reporter and still has the chops. But I do think there's like more security and permanence. You're not running all over the city, that kind of thing. That job has its own stresses. I did it for a long time. But I think the people in the street, especially if they're women, can you imagine that? Four. All right, when I come back, I got to go into the detail about the celebrities who are pulling the wool over our eyes, trying to take this country off a liberal cliff. And then I'll deal with James Flippin, who has something to say about my thoughts on gay stuff.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And on this most American of holidays,
Al
we have
Roker,
very special guests about to join us by phone. Right now, we have the President of the United States, Joe Biden, and the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden. Happy Thanksgiving to both of you.
Happy Thanksgiving, Al. It wouldn't be Thanksgiving without you.
Boo!
Oh, thank you. And, of course,
who's yelling?
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
All right,
as well.
Stop. My point is, not that Al Roker interviewed President Biden. I think that's kind of appropriate on a Thanksgiving Day parade. Unfortunately, we don't have much of a president. We don't have much of a leader. But the weird thing about that interview was the gay pride flag in the background, the LGBT queer or questioning flag hanging in the background on a church. And that's not right. It's absolutely wrong for a lot of reasons. And I went through some of them a moment ago. One of the things I point out is, look, number one, it starts to feel exclusionary, right? If you're not LGBT queer or questioning, maybe you're not welcome here. There's that. There's also, what the hell are you guys going to talk about in there? What's going to go down in there? I mean, there are other issues right now other than LGBT queer or questioning. And, oh, by the way, I might be into, well, you name it, gambling, Girls Gone Wild. I can't do that in church. I can't bring that to church. Actually, I would like to have those things not in my life. But let's say it was a couple of years ago and I was still an active viewer and subscriber to the Girls Gone Wild network. Excuse me. Should the flag be outside? Now, James Flippin, you and I have very mature conversations about a lot of things. James, you happen to be gay and married to a man and all that stuff, and that's you and I are good friends and professional colleagues, and we get along just great, and we're kind of upfront about everything. And I appreciate you running down the office, running down the hall, jumping in here and getting all over my case about what I said. Thought we were a little bit over the top, a little bit aggressive.
I did open the door with a little bit of aggression, I
no,
have to say.
Did you really?
No, I'm just teasing.
No, I thought you had a smile on your face.
I'm playing along.
All right, so tell me what's on your mind.
Okay, so I mean, I just think that it's kind of interesting that in essence you would say my loving relationship is on par with Girls Gone Wild videos or gambling.
Well,
and when we
it's
talk
not
about
necessarily what I say. Now, look, I'm just saying I can't be everything I want to be in life.
Mm-hmm.
I have urges, I have temptations,
Sure,
and I have to put them to the side. Now, I understand what you're saying. You're saying that my complaint, I'm representing like your loving relationship, as you is a vice, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have an easy answer for that.
I can actually jump in if you'd be so kind as to allow me to just sort of share my thoughts on the subject, because I had a conversation with a radio host one time that I was working with years ago, and you know, he was really focused a lot on the concept of he was a Christian, and he talked a lot about sin on this one show that he was doing, and he was getting into the concept of same-sex marriage more or less being sinful. And I kind of probed his thoughts on it a little bit, and I said, okay, but if you think about when the Bible was written and the perspective of it, it's coming from a time when there was no such thing as an open relationship, a family being built between two same-sex couples. In essence, it would have been nothing but illicit behavior, potentially sex outside of the marriage, potentially unattached and sort of hedonistic sex, which I think most people would agree within the concept of a society is sinful and unproductive and not going to raise children and grow families and all that kind of stuff.
That's the thing, actually. Look, you raise a good point. Sex outside of marriage. Is that considered sinful by the society? No, it's actively encouraged. It's actively accepted. And I'm here to tell you firsthand, it ain't good.
Mm-hmm.
It's ultimately damaging. It's ultimately, you know, it momentary gratification or whatever, you know, and then you're doing harm.
Right.
I do believe that, and I'm saying that I'm not a hypocrite here, folks. I have done a lot of stuff and temptations galore and all that stuff, but you know, because I have a better relationship with God than I used to, I don't want to do those things because, number one, I do believe they're ultimately damaging to me, and there are better things to do.
So I asked the host, I said, you know, in essence, if gay people couldn't get married and really couldn't grow a family or live with each other under the same roof and, you know, grow alongside each other, aren't you more or less banishing people of a certain sexual orientation to nothing but sin?
Well, here's the thing. When I open the Bible, I do feel a bit like a child, all right? My understanding, I'm like a kid when it comes to God. You know what I mean? I can't get my head around everything. I can't. I try, but, you know, and I won't be able to as a human being.
Right.
So there's that. Now, with that in mind, there's a lot of things in the Bible. There's a lot of stuff in there, right? I remember in The Simpsons, Lisa quotes the Bible, and it's a Halloween episode, and they think she's a witch, and she's trying to tell Chief Wiggum, but doesn't the Bible say, don't judge lest ye be judged? And Wiggum's like, the Bible says a lot of things. Shove her, boys. They shove her off the cliff.
Right.
I'm just saying, when you tackle a Bible, there's discussions about eunuchs and people being born eunuchs and this kind of thing. It's not glaring about, look, let me put it to you this way. There's so much good stuff. And here we are focusing on that one narrow point, and the whole culture gets hung up on this one narrow point. And people on my side, I'm talking about conservatives, they get their back up against the wall about the war on Christmas and all this other stuff and how our faith is being slighted, both real and perceived. But when we're not at war, when we're not defending the faith, we're not promoting it.
Yeah.
We're not sharing it. We're not sharing the good news. We're not sharing that this book and God and Jesus are the key to everything. And once you figure that out, everything is better. And by the way, you will still screw up because you're a human being. You got all this stuff, but you'll screw up less. You'll want to screw up less. So all that being said, you do me a favor. Defend for me. Tell me why there should be a gay pride flag. Let's put aside your loving relationship. A flag in front of the church. That has nothing to do with God.
I think this is where we start to have some more common ground again, because you made a really interesting point. You said there's so much in the Bible. There's so much to the Christian faith. Why would it be one specific, particular issue surrounding someone's sexuality or whatever that would get celebrated or recognized or put outside of a house of worship? It's a little bit weird. And I think I would agree with you on that in the sense that it's not really necessary. I remember when my father was the president of our local church out in New Jersey, and they were talking about this whole open and affirming idea. And should we have a sign that says we're open and affirming, which is basically saying, oh, even if you're gay, you're welcome here. And my thought was, well, isn't it inherent that if you're a Christian, anybody's welcome? Nobody's perfect. Everybody's broken in some way.
You don't have to.
If you're a gambler, if you like to watch Girls Gone Wild, it doesn't matter.
Totally. You are welcome. We're all broken. Jesus sat down with the prostitutes and the gamblers and the tax collectors and all those people, right? But celebrating those things is problematic at a church. And I get your point, and that's where I awkwardly come back to my point. Well, you got to look at it in the Bible, and this is what I think it says. But you can work that, and I do think that certain principles are timeless. And if you really want to talk about it, but then it gets a little bit out of hand. I mean, why are gay people, quite frankly, for the most part, not plenty of exceptions, but the arts dominated by gay people, right? Mm-hmm. Possibly this is a gift. Because for a long time, you didn't have to get married. You didn't have to go to war. You didn't have to do all the stuff that, consumes heterosexual men. And you guys had the time and the bandwidth to create this amazing artwork.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Create this amazing music.
Right.
When I have downtime, I'm holding a kid.
Right.
And we're going to the zoo. I've been to the zoo. It's not for me. It's for that, right?
You got deployed. Liberace was banging away at the piano.
Well, he's banging away at a lot of, of course, banging away at that piano. Liberace. I can't believe that there was actually a mystery about Liberace. All right. So the bottom line is this. James Flippin, you and I agree that there should be no LGBT queer flag in front of a church.
I do agree with you on that.
All right. So I win the argument.
Although I just want to say that the whole point is to say, even if you weren't welcome in the past in certain parishes, you are welcome here. That's sort of the whole point of it. I don't think it's necessary.
I don't know if they ever said you were not welcome here. I don't know if they ever, if that was ever the message. I mean, certain,
Some churches, they would have been a little more explicit about that.
Well, it depends how you come there. If you come there to prove a point, you know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, you're really accepting? Let me check that. Let me try that.
That's fair.
And you show up like RuPaul, drag race and you want to sit in the front row and you're like, let's face it, you're spoiling for a fight. Right. And by the way, this is where I got to point out the disclaimer. I like RuPaul. RuPaul, the person is really a cool dude. I've met him a few times. Look, it's not complicated, but it's up to I think the truth is in the Bible, and the Bible does say a lot of things, and the stuff on the gay people is a little bit, at times, opaque. It is. And people have argued that with me before, but partially because I'm not reading it that closely because it doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Well, you should see what it says about Girls Gone Wild.
It does say, actually, about all that hedonistic stuff that you're not supposed to, and it'll take you off the... I mean, there were two brothers, was it Aaron? What was that guy's name? Anyway, he had two sons. The rabbi had two sons who were going nuts with the girls. It's right there. And they lost their way, and they affected the generations, and I don't know. Every time. It's a marvelous journey, though. Well, dude, thank you very much for having a free, fair, and open conversation. Your calls when I come back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hey, at the Rosalynn Carter, First Lady of the United States from 77 and 81, married to Jimmy Carter, her funeral, or I think they're calling it a departure ceremony, is underway right now. And it's very nice because I heard about those who were invited, and I noticed I heard this all day long, that Laura Bush is going to be there and Hillary's going to be there. I never heard anything about Melania. And I'm like, wow, is she being snubbed again? Well, there she is in the very front row, aisle seat, sitting next to Michelle Obama, Laura Bush, and Hillary Clinton. I'm really glad that Melania is there. They've made her feel like an outsider in so many ways. The culture, I think she's been snubbed left and right. Michelle Obama actually complained about her. Oh, how dare she bring me a gift on Inauguration Day? Excuse me? Is there a problem with that? So there she is in the front row. How did I figure out that it was her? Well, because they're not showing her on TV all that much, but there's a wide shot. I'm like, who's that beautiful woman in the front? Yep, it's her. It's her. It's the first time I noticed her when Donald Trump came down the escalator. I told you I was in the room when that happened. But Melania was like 2 steps in front of him. And all I could think of, and I didn't know it was Melania. I was like, who is that woman? I just didn't know. And it wasn't obvious that they were married. She was like 2 steps. Anyway, she's gorgeous. And I'm glad that she was not snubbed. All right, what's going on? Let's try Larry. Hi, again.
Hi, Greg. First, I want to say I appreciate your unwavering support to Israel as a Jewish person. I couldn't help but comment on that conversation you had with James about Girls Gone Wild. You see, the thing is, Girls Gone Wild, if somebody indulges in that could be straightened out through marriage, okay? Because the Jewish tradition says that if you get married, you're forgiven for all your sins, including the fornication that occurred before it. But when you stray from
Wait a second. Wait. If you get married, you're forgiven. I mean, I know you're forgiven for your sins if you confess and you ask God for forgiveness and all that stuff. I didn't know that marriage had anything to do with the forgiveness of sins.
In the Jewish religion, yes, it says if you get married, for the man, I believe the woman too, but it's, they're both forgiven. That's right. They're both forgiven for all their previous sins. And we're not just talking about sexual sins. We're talking about all sins. That's how holy marriage, and we're talking about marriage between a man and a woman. Let's make that clear. Okay. That's why, all this Girls Gone Wild could be straightened out. If you live with somebody or something, you could straighten that out by marrying them. You can't do that in a gay relationship, which is sinful from the beginning to the end. And there's one other thing I want to say. James was saying that you're going to compare a committed relationship to Girls Gone Wild. Well, just because you have a committed relationship doesn't make it a marriage. I mean, I had a committed relationship with my Cocker Spaniel for 13 and a half years. Had she lived till 50, I would have been with her every...
All right, that's a little bit different. All right, that's a little bit different. Your Cocker Spaniel's not a human being. All right? All right? Come on, Larry. That's not nice, all right? And we got to go in... the thing about it is when we go to this issue, and let's face it, it's divisive, right? It's polarizing. And my fear is that all of the goodness and greatness of God is eclipsed by this conversation. Larry, does that make sense? I'm not quarreling with you on the merits of what you just said. I'm not doing that right now. I'm not. But do you ever fear that all this stuff about, these, I'll say, fringe issues or central, these issues, let's just call them these issues, eclipse the important stuff from God in the Old Testament and for me in the New?
I'll tell you why not. Because behavior is the essence of everything.
Well, your tone right there, Larry. I mean, behavior is the essence of everything. Forgive me, but your tone and the way you came at this and the Cocker Spaniel reference, you're going to turn off people who might who have an open heart right now. It just, I know the rules, I know the laws, I know that, right? But I don't know. I just feel like I'm not arguing with you, but you're going right to the hot button issue, and I don't know. There's just so much else there. So I guess we disagree, although I do agree with you. I don't know. All right. Final word there, Larry.
The final word is we have to love everybody for who they are, and regardless of what their inclinations are, but it has to stop at inclinations. That goes for heterosexual people as well.
All right. I can live with that. I can totally live. Larry, thank you very much. Excellent. Let's try Sherman in Manhattan. He's got something to say about this.
Yes, hello, Greg. I think you're a brilliant person. However, I think you suck today.
Why?
At explaining the real issue. Here's the deal. Mr. Flippin can't create life. Him and his probably a lovely guy, his lovely husband, they can't create life. A bomb goes off. There's nobody left.
Hey, Larry, hold on a second. If you think I suck at this, all right, I mean, you should see what's happening on other stations and when it comes to this issue, where they have Gay Pride Flag Day, Gay Pride Month Day, Gay Pride Year, right? Anything goes, over the top, right? I'm trying to, I'm being real here, and I'm being myself. I understand it's absolute in your book, and it is absolute. But Larry, the way you sound a little bit like Larry initially, and then I suck at this. But all right, well, anyway, bottom line is what?
Greg, can I speak for more than 9 seconds?
Well, I mean, wait a second. I sure, but you open the conversation with you suck at this. And don't tell me, well, I said you were brilliant, but I think that I take offense at that. And I didn't hang up at you. It crossed my mind, but all right. So speak for more than 9 seconds. I'll give you 27 seconds.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Now, don't sound like you make it sound like you're entitled, that you deserve this show. You don't. I mean, thanks for calling, but I could hang. So don't be sarcastic, please. And now I do want to listen to you. So take it away, Sherman.
That's really what it comes down to. It's like, it's very simple. The gentleman can't create life.
Okay.
And so that should be the bottom line.
Well, gee, you said that in even less than 9 seconds. Why'd you make a big stink about all the time you needed? I'm just busting your chops, Sherman. All right. So tell me, what church do you go to? Not
what
specific.
Church?
What church? I mean, do you go to church? You go to a Baptist church? You go to Methodist?
Why do you ask Mr. Flippin that? Like, what it sounds like? It sounds like you're mad at me because basically I'm calling up making a legitimate.
No. You said I suck right off the bat, and Flippin didn't say anything about me sucking. All right. So I don't. That's the thing, and I think Flippin did mention that he's a Catholic. I think so, Sherman. I'm trying to be nice to you. I want to end this on a good note. But we don't have to end as friends. I mean, all right, I'll give you the final word one more time.
The final word is respect everybody, and that goes to Mr. Flippin. But the bottom line is 2 men can't create life. Have a nice day.
All right. Thank you, Sherman. And, we agree with that, actually. 2 men can't create life. And some radical nut jobs are pushing that, Sherman. Have you heard about that? They're trying to insert a womb in men. It's totally crazy. It's totally weird, and the transgender mess. Now, Sherman, you made some good points. I'll be back.